why would I be anything else when I could be me? No, but seriously, like, I could just do me, Like, I could just live my life as me. Just whole, complete, just myself. Unabridged.
Okay, and welcome to this week's episode of Unabridged. My name is Don Miller, and I am your host for episode 6. Yay! I'm so excited. Now, granted, it's only been 6 episodes. I have been doing this since September, and it just hit me the other day, and I'm just like super proud of myself. So, yes, keep the party going. We have a really exciting episode in store for you today. I'm super hyped. I'm actually rocking something from one of our guests today. If you can see it in the camera, or you'll see it in the show notes. But definitely rocking some of his gear because it's going to be a really fun episode. We're talking about a lot of things related to food and progress. So definitely stay tuned to the second segment. But before we get into, the full episode, let's just do a quick little check-in. How are we feeling today? How am I feeling today? How are you feeling today? It's probably a good question. Just think about that for a couple minutes. How am I feeling? Pause that to make it a little bit longer. I just didn't want to be that frozen while I'm sitting here recording. But yes, no, I am feeling good. It is a Monday morning. Last time we were coming to you from a Sunday night, which isn't usually the best because the girls are kind of sleepy. She's been cleaning all day, doing a bunch of stuff. But this morning, we are caffeinated up. We got our vitamins pumping through our system. That's a thing. So, this is going to be a very lively beginning. So I feel good. I feel great. This is a new season for your girl, which we'll talk about next week. And speaking of next week, we have a super, super special series of episodes or content that's going to be coming out. One really amazing leg of the Unabridged journey, which I am so excited for. I think I've been talking about this for at least the last 2 episodes. And then also a very personal kind of like let's get into it segment that are actually going to be released separately. So definitely be on the lookout. The end of the year, we're going to close with a bang and a lot of fun stuff for you all. So that's our quick little how you doing for the week. Now let's get into my favorite segment. Well, I guess my second favorite segment, even though there's only 2 segments. Let's get into my second favorite segment. Let's get into it. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
All right, let's get into it. We have a lot of things to talk about this week. Well, I have a lot to talk about this week. Y'all got a lot to listen to this week. So again, as always, if you're just here for the interview, I get it. My guest is dope. I'll put in the show notes where to start. But if you're here for the news, buckle up, girl, because we have a lot to talk about. Okay. I don't know why I cracked myself up. This is what happens when you're an only child. You just make yourself laugh. Anyway, first things first, we're going to start with the city girls. Well, not the city girls, but we're going to talk about the city side. So you guys know that there is a ban on those Pooh ski masks? There is a ban on ski mask. And I bet you didn't know, because you know who doesn't know? A lot of the people don't know, because it happened so randomly. And yeah, so let me not say it happened randomly. It happened, and I'm not sure if it was actually like shared very widely the way that it needed to, especially for something that is going to affect so many people's lives. So as you guys who already know, probably more than anything else in this, people be wearing these masks, okay? They got popularized in fashion. Some rapper named Pooh Shiesty wears them all the time, or wore them all the time. I don't know. I can't keep up with these rappers. And the kids started wearing them. People started saying it at one point it was because of COVID, and then not because of COVID. People have been wearing them for work all the time. If you're somebody who works outside, these masks, you wear these masks. But as they became more fashionable and people started wearing them a little bit more excessively, people started using them and wearing them more often to commit crimes, right? So people were getting scared. So a lot of complaints happened around this time when young people wearing these masks. So because of that, Councilmember Anthony Phillips, who is the council member for the 9th District, this is Mount Airy, this is Germantown, this is Uptown. If this is where you live, Councilmember Phillips is your representative. He introduced a bill a bill was passed on November 30th that he introduced some weeks before, that was voted out of council by a 13-2 vote to ban ski mask, aka Pooh Shiesty mask. Now, What this looks like now is that if an individual is caught wearing these in public spaces, that could be rec centers, that could be churches, that could be schoolyards, an individual could be fined up to $250. If this happens repeatedly, they could be fined up to $2,000. Now, there were two opposition voters in this. That was Councilmember Kendra Brooks and Councilmember Jamie Gaudier, as well as a lot of opposition when the bill was going to pass on November 30th. One of those major noted oppositions was actually the ACLU. They are representing the actual union that represents the Philadelphia Public Defenders Association, which is everybody's lawyer. If something happens to you, you likely will get a public defender. So their union actually is aggressively against this. They had a string of testifiers. Some people came down there wearing a mask, talking about an infringement on their First Amendment rights, which is completely understandable and notable if you're not really paying attention to the context of the bill, especially, in addition, there was not a lot of explanation for what this actually looks like. And one example of that is that the police themselves, while they are in support of the bill, have not yet actually created the policies for how this is going to be implemented. So this bill was introduced and passed with a lot of questions and also a lot of concerns. Some of the accusations, or I hate to say accusations, but some of the things that were brought up during the public comment was that we are just introducing more ways to police young Black men's bodies, because that is who usually wear these masks, and that is who this is going to affect at a great deal. Some other folks, including the ACLU, were scared because they said that this is going to be a way to start using stop and frisk. We always talk about stop and frisk. We talked about stop and frisk 2 weeks ago. It's going to be a way for them to use it against these young men in ways that could be detrimental to their lives and even to the police officers' lives. So there was a lot of concern about this, and I worry, some of these questions have been answered. But at the same time, we have to understand that people were scared. Multiple murders. We're talking about mass shootings in the city of Philadelphia were committed by individuals who were wearing these masks. And we're also not the first city to do this. Multiple cities across the country have already banned these masks. These masks were already technically banned on SEPTA. So this is not the first of its kind. This bill just really broadens the space for where you're actually allowed to wear these masks. And there are some carve-outs, for sure. There are carve-outs for religious reasons. There are carve-outs for weather. There's carve-outs for costumes, and there's also a carve-out in the bill if you're in protest, because that, again, is the protection of one of your rights to protest. But again, what implementation looks like is really going to be the dividing line between how this bill is implemented and between how people in the community truly respond to it. The next day after the bill passed, I sent the pictures to my staff because it was a young man on the train in front of me who literally had on the mask. I'm like, they don't know. Who knows that this is happening, right? So isn't even going to address the concerns that the community members who pushed Councilmember Phillips to introduce this, is it going to address those concerns? We definitely have to stay tuned for this. And because we have a new administration coming up, and as we talked about last week, a new police commissioner, we have a lot of fresh eyes that are going to be working on this and implementing this. So maybe that'll give some type of semblance in the New Year's that we'll see this. Technically, it's not signed into law yet. The mayor has until December 14th to sign the bill into law or to take any action on it. If he doesn't sign it because it has such a high approval vote from council, it'll just go into effect. Or if he signs it, it'll go into effect immediately. He has a 10-day window to figure that out, and we're still, by the time this episode comes out, we'll still have about 2 or 3 more days before we figure out what the mayor is going to do. I honestly could see him not signing the bill. He has been, on the progressive thing his whole entire term, so I could totally see him not siding with it, especially because the 2 members that voted against it were the 2 progressive members of council. So again, this bill has been introduced and voted out of council and likely will be taking effect as early as the new year. So stay watching, because it is going to affect a lot of the girls. Okay, the state side. Wait, oh no, I'm skipping ahead. I forgot. I had 2 for city this week. 2 for city this week because something else interesting happened. And again, this is something that is going to be something to watch out for. Now, the last council session, Councilmember Jones, December 7th, Councilmember Jones, which is West Philly, that's like Overbrook, that's Winfield. I can't name too many. I'm not a West Philly girly, but those areas, introduced a resolution, right, to have hearings around what is this thing called again? The Consent to Search Act, right? And this is something that was done in St. Louis in the early 90s, right? And this is where police officers would knock on individuals' doors where youth were in high crime areas and just say, hey, we want to take a look around. Do we as the police have the consent of the parent to search the space of a young person? All that across the board is legal. Now, Councilmember Jones wants to introduce hearings to look at what that would mean for the city of Philadelphia. Now, to kind of give some background context, I looked a little bit into, what actually happened in St. Louis, and why they did this, what was the point of this. And the main reason they did this was because they saw at this time an increase in youth violence, youth gun violence in particular. And if you're paying attention to the news right now, you know in Philadelphia that while crime may be going down, crime is going up between young people ages 18 to 21 years old. 16 to 21 years old, because if you're 18 and that's, they can't, what are you consenting to? But 16 to 21 years old. This is what happens when you try to be one take home. You get a little mixed up, but it's okay. Moving forward, so we see gun violence really spiking in young people ages 16 and up. So what this bill or what this resolution will look into is what would Philadelphia do if we actually started using this policy of consent to search. Now, when I looked into this, when I looked deeper into this and was trying to figure out exactly what happened in St. Louis, it was a federally funded program that started in 1994. And again, to address the issues that we saw around youth gun violence. Now, when the program was first implemented, it was implemented in 3 different stages. And that really happened because of inconsistency in the administration in St. Louis. Now, in the first iteration of it, when it first rolled out, when the girls are all, yes, we're here, consent to search, they had some of the highest rates of not only cooperation from those that they knocked on the doors, but they also found guns. Almost 99% of the time when they actually did these searches. So in the first iteration of this, when it was fresh out the box, it actually had some amazing results. However, when you started going to phases 2 and 3, when they started changing some more of the internal policy and the way they were enacting it, the effectiveness of this tool dropped significantly to the point where it almost just stopped working. And then in the late 90s, they actually ended up stopping the program because they saw it as not being effective anymore. One of the major things that they cited was the lack of trust between community members and police officers. Now, I'm pausing right there because one thing right now we know in the city of Philadelphia is that cops and communities do not trust one another, right? Like the way that police systems are designed right now, majority of the cops that are patrolling the neighborhoods or majority of the neighborhoods that they patrol, they are not from. So that puts up a way different guys in front of them when they go into these communities, and vice versa, right? Most of the cops that were patrolling our communities are not from where we are from. So who are these people, right? What community programs or things like that are happening anymore to really help build that trust between communities and police? Now, in late 2021, early 2022, I'm going to give my boss a shout out. Councilmember Thomas introduced the driving equality legislation, which really aimed at removing police interactions from certain motor vehicle stops in order to help build this trust, because they had police officers, searching individuals and managing the state of people's cars. And because of those interactions, sometimes those interactions would completely escalate, causing major issues for police and for communities where sometimes individuals wind up dead. These are the type of experiences that we, especially Black communities, are used to dealing with police officers. So when I first heard this bill, when you think about the context of it, it's like, duh, it makes sense, right? Like, people are always saying, where are the parents? Where are the parents in this when all these young people are committing these crimes and blah, 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 blah. And, let's get them involved in this. But at the same time, have we built up that trust enough between our police and our communities to actually make something like this happen? What is some of the pre-work that needs to be done between police and communities in order for a policy like this to actually be effective? Right now, if you see a police officer knocking on your door, what is your response? Especially in a high crime area. I don't got no warrant. What do you want? I don't have nothing here for y'all to search. What do you want? Right? There's not going to be a come on in, officer ABCD. Come on in and search my house. In the state of where we are right now in the city of Philadelphia, I do not see that being the case. And I'm not saying that this is because of any one person's fault. This is a multitude of instances that have just compounded on top of each other that has created this climate for people of color and police officers. So again, I think that, bringing parents into the gun violence issue with young people makes a lot of sense. But I think that we definitely need to address major gaps in trust between police and communities before something like this could actually effectively be implemented. That's it for the city, girls. Moving along. Now, these last two are going to be a little bit shorter because we spent at least a good amount of time on the city side. But city had a lot going on. I feel like, or maybe I'm just, again, super biased because that's the news I'm usually paying attention to. But it is what it is. So now let's go to the state side. So the Supreme Court, again, we're always talking about the courts on the state side because the girls are always doing something. The Supreme Court of Pennsylvania has agreed to consider whether or not homophobic Facebook posts shared by two Northwest Pennsylvania school board members are public record under the right to know law. That was a lot. Let's take it back. So first of all, right to know is the basis of this whole entire story. And what the right to know law means is that because individuals, representatives are public officials, that you should be able to basically subpoena or request for any of their communications that take place on public use devices, as well as on their public time, or about issues related or matters related to anything to do with the public, right? So if I'm using my city work computer, right, and I'm talking about something to do with a bill, like for example, if I'm emailing somebody about Pooh Shiesty mask or about the mask ban, somebody can request and be like, I want to know everything that member so-and-so said about Pooh Shiesty mask from this date to this date, and they have to give it up. Right? That is what right to know means. They have it at the state, they have it at the city levels, everything, because it is an idea of keeping government transparent and keeping government, what it should be for the people, right? So, but now in the new age of social media, we are seeing, how something like right to know should actually be enacted, and we're having a lot of questions around this. So that's right to know. And the basis of this story was this actually happened a little while ago. So back in June of 2021. Yes, a long time ago. The Maplewood High School, which is in Northeast Pennsylvania, had a display up of LGBTQ plus literature, right outside the library, like all the girls do around June. It was Pride. They had a cute little display up. And what happened is that a teacher took a picture of it, or somebody took a picture of it, posted it on Facebook that this was happening at the school. Now, two school board members, the original member who actually wrote the post, David Valatsky, I'm going to put it in the notes because I'm probably butchering this man's name, reshared the tweet and basically was flaming the bookshelf. Like, this is evil. This is wrong. We are indoctrinating our young people. Why is this allowed? Yes, remember, if you leave Philadelphia, you are in Kentucky. So this is outside of Philly, but it's still Pennsylvania. The girls are very conservative. Moving along, he was pissed, as well as his former board president, his fellow board president, Luigi DiFrancesco. They were mad about the display. They talked about it in the previous, in the following school board meeting, where people came in an uproar. Now, the community that came out during the school board meeting were basically evenly mad. Some people called for his resignation. They put together a petition to call for board members to be removed because of their comments. But some people were actually in support of the members' comments, saying, they don't want their young people to be showing this LGBTQ plus stuff. And basically, after that school board meeting, they voted on a bunch of just anti-LGBTQ plus legislations, including a book ban on books that talked about anything to do with LGBTQ people. I said that like 52 times. Sorry. Any book bans around related to anything to do with LGBTQ members, as well as a ridiculous ban against transgender members from actually participating in sports. So this all happened in 2021. The girls are pissed, but they move forward. This is what happens when you don't, sometimes you live in very conservative areas, and even though you have these progressive or democratic ideals that try to pop up, you still live in some really conservative strongholds. So a lot of these policies were introduced and went forward. Fast forward to this year, and a member of the, what is the name of this county? I'm sorry, y'all. I don't be knowing these county names. Listen, a member of the county where the school district, was actually filed a right to know request on member Valinsky's Facebook comments. He filed the right to know request. He wanted to know, I want to know everything that you said about these books, about this display. I need to know, because of course, after all this backlash, my man deleted the post. But no, they filed a right to know request stating that we need to see your documents. Now, the smaller courts actually agree with this, right? It was the smaller courts, and it was the court of records for that county. They agree with this. They're like, you need to pull up the receipts. We need to see, what these posts are. But they actually appealed against that, and the court directly above, I believe the Superior Court actually denied that and stated because these comments were not made on the official school board's Facebook page, it did not have the right to actually subpoena these comments. Now, this is actually going to get sent to the Supreme Court now because once again, people are arguing because he was posting about a situation that was talked about during the school board meeting. This should be up for grabs. You're talking about official business, whether or not on your private account, you're a public member talking about official business on whatever streaming platform. We need to know what this is related to, and we need to have that information. So these are the arguments the Supreme Court is going to hear, and they are definitely going to rule and see what this means. This would be a crazy upset. This is the first case of its kind, and we are going to continue to see cases like this. There's actually another case right now in the U.S. Supreme Court against another county. I don't have the name of it, but where a gentleman is suing the city manager because he blocked him on Facebook. And he is claiming that blocked his freedom of speech right. And in certain counties, at least in Philadelphia, our communications folks, they get briefings about what we're allowed to delete, what we're allowed to change, because we are not allowed to infringe on people's free speech, especially on our public accounts. We are at a time where social media has become a part of the official document. Donald Trump has really shifted that by tweeting and making his official announcements through Twitter. Now there are tweets a part of our official register, a part of our official record, right? So now we're starting to see changes into how these comments are policed and what is included and what is meant to be public and what is not. People don't understand that we are truly still in the wild west days of social media because governments do not know what to do. Now throw in AI and the girls really are behind. So over the next couple of years, I definitely see a lot of cases like this happening where we have to think about what our technology and what the use of our technology by public officials means to the actual public process. And again, I'm going to be on my, Uncle Joe 2024 kick. If Donald Trump is the president or any Republican, Nikki Haley, DeSantis, whatever one of them people is in, that is definitely going to shift it. And I can't see it shifting in a positive direction for the most common good. I told y'all the state girlies are always doing a lot. All right, let's get into the last one. Uncle Joe, again, he's at it again. And I probably will start doing stuff from congressional members and things like that as we start moving on to this. I'm just trying to get into my flow because, again, this type of news is just not in my usual area. But we're trying to include it more because of the show. But federal girlies. So, what date was this? I don't even have the date up here. Oh, December 7th. Again, December 7th was a busy news day. The Biden administration put the pharmaceutical company girls on notice. They put the girls on notice, right? They let them know that if they continue to have these ridiculous prices for life-saving medicine, we're talking about insulin, right? Things that, like, if you don't have it, if you don't have it, you will die. They put them on notice and basically said that if the prices continue to be so high that they will be removing their patent and allow for other companies to make generic versions of it at cheaper rates. Let's give it up for the Biden girlies, okay? That is how you use government to check parts of our economy. Now, granted, there are parts of our economy we need to have free. It needs to be free-flowing. Yes, we get it into it. I am not an anti-capitalism girly, fully. Capitalism is crazy, but sometimes I get it. But at the end of the day, the way that these pharmaceutical companies have just been gouging prices, again, for things like insulin, where somebody has to come out of pocket $1,000 a month after their insurance, it's ridiculous. People are dying because of that. And because these ridiculous, party lines will not allow us to create things like, universal health care, like most progressive societies and most democratic societies and most advanced societies have, there has to be ways that we can support individuals, especially older individuals on fixed incomes, to have protections around the prices for their medicines. That's it. So the Biden girlies put them on notice, and they said that they would override their patents. And if you know, the patents basically say that no one else can make this drug. And if they do make this drug, they have to pay us a pretty penny. But they're going to remove these patents if this continues to go forward. And I think that this, again, is an incredible way that government could regulate capitalism in a way to support individuals, but not at the same time hurting the bottom line of these businesses. Because these businesses don't need to have these skyrocket rates. They literally are responding to market demand. That's why girls are always rushing to finish first or rushing to get things done first. When you saw the COVID pandemic stuff happen, granted, we had already been working on the vaccine for that, but girls are rushing to the end because they wanted to be the ones. But I think, again, this is an amazing thing that is coming from the Biden administration. He is beating that drum. What have you done for me lately? Because he's trying to remind y'all that this is the type of things that a Democratic executive branch can give to you. So again, this week's Let's Get Into It was a lot. There's so many things going on as always, but I'm going to do my best to try to, bring things to you, things that matter to your life. And there are so many other things, again, I always say that we could be talking about, like this George DeSantis bull. Yes, we know he is getting kicked out. We know that this is going crazy. We know about the Fetterman. We know about all that stuff. There's so many other spicy things, but that does not matter to our lives. We do not live in Long Island, so I didn't feel the need to report on that. But again, always coming to you with things that matter. And closing it out for this week's Let's Get Into It episode. And I actually would love to, if there's stories you guys think that I should look into, or, things that you might have heard about, like, Dom, I heard about this. What does this mean? Share it to me. I would love that. I think that would be super cool. My Gmail is actually linked across all my social media, and my website, so please check it out. All right. And that has been this week's episode of Let's Get Into It. Let's get into our next segment, our Unabridged Journey for the week, after a quick break. Thank you. Unabridged is filmed and recorded at the MQ Factory Studio located in Manayunk. Founded by photographer Ricky Codio, the 8,000 square foot studio is available for rent for photo, video, and podcast productions, as well as film screenings and social events. The creative space has been designed with photographers, filmmakers, and creative individuals in mind and is customizable to the needs of your production. Visit www.mqfactory.com to learn more. Now let's get back to the show. Unabridged. All right. And welcome to the next leg of the Unabridged journey. I am so excited for today's episode. Took us a couple of chances to get here. The power and the weather is working against us and everything, but we made it and we are here. I am so excited about my guest today. We're going to get into all his stuff, but most people already just know him as Chef Kurt. So thank you so much, Chef Kurt, for joining the show today.
Thank you, Dom. Happy to be here. Second try. We had to go for the third, but we was about to be going for the third. The way the weather was set up.
No, I'm happy it worked out. So no, thank you so much for joining. So I always, at the beginning of the show, I always give my guests a lot of their flowers at the beginning because I want to talk about why I even wanted to have you on the show. So I feel like the idea of using food to progress the liberation of our communities is not a new idea, right? We have folks like your mentor, Miss Edna Lewis. I did my homework, as well as the Black Panther movement. They use food as a vehicle to really mobilize our people, to inspire our people. But I feel like you kind of took that baton and put it in the fine dining space, right? Yeah. So talk about, how do you talk about how you get to that point, right? How do you take that path of, working in some of the top kitchens in Philadelphia to then making that into the movement space and using that to really progress, minority communities?
Yeah. So for me, I've always been a student to Black liberation. Read a lot of books on Black liberation, Black movement spaces, Black movement work. So for me, it was how can me being a chef use my platform? Because at that time, everybody has a platform. Everybody's on Twitter, everybody's on Instagram. And instead of just using my platform to just post food pictures, I started a dinner series called En Masse Incarceration Dinner Series. And I started that dinner series because I wanted to bring awareness to mass incarceration in our community, because a lot of people, they get caught up with the cliches. You do the crime, you do the time. Most people don't understand the systemic things that go into why people do crime. Crime isn't just all the time. I'm just going to go out and sell these drugs. I'm just going to go out because, some people can't get a job. I mean, I'm going to say some people can't get a job. It was systemically, our communities have been redlined. There's a lot of things that go into these issues. So I wanted to, have a dinner series to bring people that's victims of crime, perpetrators of crime, lawyers, judges, activists together in a room, and we can talk about mass incarceration over dinner. So food is the vehicle that gets everybody to the table.
So, I mean, you talked a little about being a student, but like, is there a particular reason why mass incarceration? Because I mean, you could have had those dinners and talked about, housing insecurity or, what's going on with youth and young people. But like, is there a particular reason why you decided to look into mass incarceration or make that kind of like the fight?
So around the time mass incarceration, I had read The New Jim Crow. From The New Jim Crow, it was a documentary called The 13th that came out. And then I think the Khalif Browder story. So it was like New Jim Crow, read that, and then literally those documentaries came out. And the response that I seen from the internet was dictating that people didn't know, because it was just like, oh man, and actually some, like The New Jim Crow had already came out, and I read that years ago. But by the time she was featured in the documentary, The 13th, pretty much more people.
That book had a boom. Like
Yeah.
it was definitely like this, and it had like its moment, like the Me Too movement did, where it was just like, this is it right now, and it's because of this book. And I agree with you, like immediately afterwards, and then Jay-Z got involved in the Khalif Browder story. So it was like one thing after another. When most of the time in our Black communities, these are things that we already knew, right? It wasn't like, I mean, and granted, like, the one thing the 13th did for me is it really connected the economic side, right? And, I spent most of my childhood visiting SCI Dallas because my uncle has been locked up since before I was born. So I have been going into those prisons like my whole entire life. So
Me too.
seeing, like the card, and remember my grandma having to get the card because we have to get this, and we're going to go in there and buy him food for that. And you start taking your personal experience in that, the book grounded it. I'm like, yo, this is what they were doing the whole entire time, because I had one of those little cards, right? I had to go online and purchase the size credit so he can then email me. Like, I knew about that system, but like that book really grounded it into like, oh wow, like this is really what's happening.
Yeah.
So
And around, like I said, around that time, social media, that was a lot of people's enlightening period around 15, 16, 17. So people are like, oh, wow, I didn't know, like I said, most people in our communities, like crime happens, people, they got friends, family in jail. But then like a lot of the economic issues, like, oh, wow, the money is like, oh man, well, they didn't know, private prisons. Like people just started learning about private prisons. People started learning about the phones, like how people make, like how they make money off the phone system. So it was a lot going on that it was just like, okay, let's have these dinners. Every dinner was a topic. So preschool to prison pipeline, recidivism, bail, all types of different topics. And we had different people hosted dinners. Pastor Carl Day hosted one. Kevin Harden, from my friend Duke, hosted the very first one. He broke down like the whole overall prison system. And all of the people that spoke at the dinners have had run-ins with the carceral system. So that was something that I really wanted to be a part, because I didn't want to just have the dinners you eat and I'm talking to you about the prison system. I want you to talk and hear from people that have been incarcerated. And also when you meet these people, like, you're like, oh wow, I didn't know you were incarcerated. And then next thing you know, people are looking at these people really different, because storytelling is inclusive and it's healing. So people hear people's stories and they're like, wow, I didn't know that. So it's like, that's why we started the dinners.
I love that. No, that's amazing. So it was like a chicken or the egg. So are we giving, like, was it the fine dining that came first, working in kitchens first, or was it, those mass incarceration dinners first?
Working in kitchens first.
Okay.
Working in kitchens first. And that was something like always, I've been cooking probably since I was about 9, 10, because growing up, hunting, fishing, done all of those
Growing
things.
up hunting? Where are you growing up hunting?
So like I've spent my summers with my dad. So my dad doesn't live in Philadelphia. So we go fishing, hunting, and like growing up, like, when you catch a fish animal, you have to clean it, you have to learn how to cook it. So it was like I was doing that at a very young age. So by the time I got in the kitchens, it was just like, even first job at high school was a cooking job. And that was at McDonald's at Children's Hospital. I was at McDonald's at Children's Hospital. And the funny thing about that McDonald's, it was like the number one McDonald's in the region because it was at the number one pediatric hospital in the world.
Right.
So it's like it was very like I probably my McDonald's experience probably been different. If I was on like 52nd Street. So like that was like it was a different experience because like we did like the PGA golf tour and all types of stuff like that. Like our McDonald's was like it was a really important one.
See, not you starting out with fine dining in fast food too. Like that does not count. It's like, see, certain things are just like that the universe aligns for us, right? You're like, I'm not even just gonna start out in the regular girlies. Yeah. It's definitely like that. But that's also amazing. And I think one thing that is a theme that comes up on this show a lot is, you know, people, you know, using their time outside of the city and using those skills and then really just bringing them back, right? So like that's kind of an interesting story that, you know, you spent your summers out because like most Philly kids are not fishing, right? We're not spending our summers fishing and then learning how to, you know, prep a fish properly and all those things like that. Like we're not getting that type of connection. So I love how, you know, travel and really like going outside of our communities to support our communities is always like a constant theme through these interviews.
Yeah, it was like so I was like 15. I was like, yeah, I'm not coming back. I'm not coming back.
It's like I now have a job. I
got girlfriend.
Right.
I'm cool.
I'm an adult now. Like
I'm not coming back. I'm not coming back.
Oh my goodness. Well, no, that's awesome. So you said, so you kind of started those dinners. So then talk about how we get to some more of your like larger like initiatives that people know you were. So like Everybody Eats. And I think one of my favorite is down north. You know, you guys are on Uber Eats now, so I'm eating there a lot more than I should. So, so talk about, you know, how some of those ventures began as well.
So down north, I'm no longer a part of Down North Pizza. So I co-founded Down North Pizza along with Muhammad and Kareem. And I left Down North Pizza over a year and a half ago. And pretty much Down North started from, I had a restaurant called Route 23 on Germantown, Hunting Park, around the corner from Gratz High School. And I just was, I was closing that one down, and Muhammad and Kareem, they was like, hey, we want to do a restaurant, and I was with it, and at that time I had like really got a lens of doing mass incarceration work with the EMI dinners. And, you know, we put that on paper around like 2019, the pizza shop, like getting paperwork done like legally, but we didn't open the pizza shop till like 2021 or something like that. So
yeah, it doesn't take like 58 steps just to open up a restaurant in the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah, the steps, and then it's also like being a black business. That's also like that's a whole nother thing where like we don't have like all of the resources and capital as other like entities do. So, but in that time frame, I went up to New York, and I was the teacher at a nonprofit called Drive Change, where we teach formerly incarcerated youth ages 18 to 25 culinary skills. So did that until it was like 2019 to 2020, and then COVID happens. Lose my job, come back home. But during COVID happens, lose my job, come back home. I start doing the Dough Fund. The Dough Fund was in New York as well too, so I get hired for the Dough Fund. But I'm back home in Philly, so I'm commuting to New York 3 days a week, teaching formerly incarcerated homeless men at a shelter called the Dough Fund. So I was the culinary director there, and doing that, and the uprisings happened with George Floyd. So Everybody Eats. So a friend of mine, Steph, Malik, Aziza, Greg, we all get together, and we started doing just food give backs in West Philly, North Philly, South Philly, started different places. And we started Everybody Eats. And then actually the pizza shop was actually open and doing pop-ups around that time. So my life was very busy at that time. So it was 3 days a week in New York, and then coming back home Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we were doing pop-ups at the pizza shop. And then on twice a month, we did like food give backs with Everybody Eats. So yeah, that was really big.
How are you like sustaining through all of this? Because like, and this is, you just worked this right into my next question, because you have not just picked like, oh, I'm going to pick two fields. And no, like you picked two of the hardest spaces to work in, movement space for minority communities and restaurants. And so how do you even sustain or keep that fight going? Because like that is not an easy feat at all.
It's not. I don't even know. I'm just.
Like, I'm just waking up.
Yeah, like how is this little meme Uzi? He's like, I don't know. I'm just out here. Like, you're like, I don't know. I just got here, so it's like I'm just literally out here just working, trying to. And at that time also, I started with 215 People's Alliance as mass liberation organizer. So I was organizing for Larry Krasner's campaign. So and then it just was organizing for Larry Krasner's campaign, and then I became full time there doing mass liberation work. So doing mass liberation work, I started a group inside of 215 People's Alliance called Justice for All, where we focused on the criminal justice system. And before I left 215, we had started doing this. We did this art project called Voices of the Unheard. I got a friend, Robert Dow, who's in prison, currently serving. He's on the 12th year of his 25th year in prison, and he's at Esiaco Township. And pretty much we've been doing this project called Voices of the Unheard. So he calls me, and I was videotaping. Well, I was recording the stories. So me and a friend of mine, Jamie, we were recording stories, and we put the project out as the multidisciplinary art project, where it was audio. So people come in. We had it at the Urban Art Gallery in West Philly, and pretty much people come in, put the CD in, put the headphones on, and pretty much we were sharing stories of individuals at Esiaco Township, and yeah, man, it was crazy. And then we had a lot of formerly incarcerated artists, Suave Gonzalez and Akil Roberts, create art for the show. So it was like an art show, and then people could come in, listen to the stories, and also letters. They wrote letters, so you could read the letters, see the art. It was a whole project around that, and we had 2 EMI dinners around that same weekend. So it was in mass incarceration dinners downstairs, and then we went upstairs to view the art. But the art was on display the whole weekend. Yeah.
I love that, like, so much of your work in this space is just providing a platform for people to share their stories. And like, I feel like we don't, or even movement space, a lot of the times it does the opposite of that. It's like, I'm going to take your story and I'm going to tell it, and I'm going to tell you how, what I can get out of this. But like, it seems like, a lot of what you do is just giving individuals a platform to say, like, this is my story that directly from me. And I think that that's so powerful, because a lot of the times those communities that we're fighting for, they're in those spaces because their voices were removed from them. So I think that that's empowering in so many different ways. So that's incredible.
Yeah, and that's why I said I really wanted to figure out what could I do with my platform. And if my platform was to help other people get a platform, I'm cool with that. A good friend of mine, Uptown Surge, the Hood Abolitionist. It's funny, I met him on Andre Carroll's campaign. He had just came home 20-something years. And he was hungry. He was out here working, knocking doors. We were knocking doors. We got to talk, got to know each other. And he was like, "Yo, man, I wanted to thank you." And I know he's probably not going to mind me sharing the story, but I helped him with his website. Like I like paid for the domain, and I like kind of did like the basics of his website. But he was like, "Oh man, this is great." So he took it from there, and he actually had somebody else like do it. And I got him like his first like 3 like public speaking engagements where like people actually like paid him to speak. And he was just like, he was like, people paying me to speak to hear my story. And it was like when I usually get catering jobs, people look at me like, I'm a movement. I do space in a movement work. So once people like hired me for events, like it was called City Fines and Fees. So they came, they were from San Francisco. They came to Philly, and they were talking about prison fines and fees. So they was like, hey, he's a chef that deals around mass incarceration. They hired me to cater an event. My catering company, we do lots of catering for events and companies in the city. So we did the event. We signed to do the event, and then they was like, hey, would you mind speaking? I was like, yeah, that's a fee too. Like I'm like, I got now.
Right.
This is like, all right, yeah, this is catering, but you're not gonna slide me in to talk.
Right,
so I was like,
right.
yeah, you gotta pay for that as well. But then I was like, you know what? I'll speak on like the work that I do and things like that. But also, I think it's more important if you bring someone in and they can share their story
Right.
about the fines and fees. And I connected them, with Surge, and Surge got paid then, and then I've been doing work with some schools because I used it in mass incarceration dinners also as a tool for companies now. So like, say a company's like, hey, we're trying to, we're getting our team together, and so they bring me in, we'll have a dinner around something like maybe they have an issue in the company, they're trying to figure something out, so we come together over dinner, and pretty much they use that as a tool to like figure out things, they talk. So that's also the dinners for me have evolved into that for like doing like company building, like inside of like DEI inside of companies and stuff like that. So.
I love that. And I think that's like, that just speaks to your work and making sure and the tangible, right? Because this is like, this movement work does not pay, right? Like a lot of this stuff we do for the level of our communities, but it's also like, how do I, make this into something else to make sure that it can sustain, right? And I think going into this, again, I did not know that. I'm actually about to have you come and do something for Team Thomas in our transition. But no, I think that like, that is just like showing that, we need these resources to actually continue this work to support our communities. And I think a lot of the time when we're in the movement spaces, we are not looking at the tangible. We're not looking at the hard results. We're looking at the narratives or theories that we're creating in our minds that we want to continue to push. So like, can you talk a little bit about like what it means for you to have to create results for your community and say you're in a movement space? Because working in a movement space, like changes come so slow, right? Because you're honestly on the outside really pushing and getting other people to do things that may be out of their bandwidth or something they may not be thinking about. So, what does it mean for you to actually have to create tangible change in the work that you do and not just, speak about it or, push those narratives?
Yeah. So for me, what I've come to realize about a lot of movement work, people care about what the work looks like versus what the work actually is. So people are, you'll see people. There's a lot of stuff I do that doesn't make the internet, right? And I'm cool with that. And I wish I could stop putting a lot of less stuff that I do on the internet. But most people, like, the internet is for people support you, people are voyeurs, and there's just some people that don't like you. So it's just a lot of eyes, and a lot of people are voyeurs. So people are like, they're just concerned about what it looks like what they're doing versus what it is what they're doing. And I try to stay far away from what it looks like I'm doing to actually doing the work. And to produce the results is like, I mean, you can't say you're doing the work if you're not producing the results. When I talk about hiring people that's been formerly incarcerated, I mean, I have a lot of people that on my catering company that I'm constantly hiring. And even if I can't hire people, I reached out with other people, and I'm like, hey, I have a kid that's doing this. And why I widen my catch net, because it's like I get kids and people that come to me that's been formerly incarcerated that can't even cook, have no interest in cooking. And it's like, me and Carl, we do this a lot. Like, he sent me some kids from his program because he's like, hey, this kid wants to cook. And I still have like one kid from Carl's program. He's like constantly like, hey, I got these days off. I want to, come cook. And he's like, usually the days off, he wants to come cook with me because he's like, I don't want to be in the streets. So producing the results is like taking this kid in. He got shot before. He's like, I'm trying not to be out in the streets. So it's like helping this kid get his life together. And when I take on these jobs, and also what I learned about like certain things you do, people don't want to pay for things. Cause then it's like, yeah, I'm paying, like I pay staff and I pay them really well. So they come in and they work for 2-3 hours, and I pay them well for those 2-3 hours just to not be on the streets for 2-3 hours. And then the money that they get is like, okay, I don't need to go out on the streets. I can go to the mall. I can go. So it's just something, whatever that they may need. But producing those results for me, it means a lot, because if you're not able to produce the results, you're going to still be in the same cycle. But then you're still on one end saying like, an outcome to what we're doing in like when we're doing the work. It's also a lot of talking to the people that I'm working for. So I don't talk to people, and I don't come up with my own thing about like what they need. I ask them what they need, and then if I can provide that, I'll like figure a way to do it. And if I can't, I'll like try to point them into the direction of what they like. Like I said, talking to my homie Sergi, he was like, "Oh man, I really want to get involved in this." I created him a website. So I was like, "Oh, create your website. Then you can draw your traffic there." Because even when he was in prison, he did the prison radio. He did all of that, like the newsletters. So that's something that he wanted to continue to do. But just being able to have a platform. So I think that's important. But like really listening to people is another key part in when you're doing the work.
I think that, like what you just said is like, I hope people are like, hear this, right? Because we talk about how we need to change our communities and what needs to be done. And, I think a lot the way that old heads view this space is like, we got to get these kids jobs, right? And then they try to set them up with whatever. But like not realizing that these are young people with passions. They have things that they want to do. And you're not going to pull them out of their situations just by making them join the union, right? And I think a union job is dope, right? Get that pension, get that protection, do what you got to do. But at the end of the day, are we talking to them about what would really change their lives? What would actually make them want to not be out in the streets, right? Because I think, before, and I make it sound like an old head, but before our time, you were in the streets because you probably had to be. But now it's really connected to this lifestyle that these young people want. And I always say this, we have to show them that they can get a certain lifestyle without going about it this way. Like, y'all want to make bread, y'all want to make change, y'all want to be flashy. You know who do that? Lawyers do that, right? Yeah. Like, look at my man. You mentioned Kevin. Look at Kevin. Kevin be courtside. He be at the Lakers game. He is a lawyer, right? So I think that really driving in and talking to them about what they actually want to do to make sure that they're not just falling down these paths, or know that they do have these other options, is such an important piece of this. And it's also a major reason why I wanted to start this show, right? I really wanted to tell stories and share stories about how people who have made change in their communities actually did it, and kind of remove that, or not make it so like this mystifying process, right? Yeah. To show other people that there are different ways to go about this. Like, there's not one path, or certain people that we see, they did not go about it in this regular way that you may think. So I think that what you said was amazing. So I want to switch gears though. So we talk about all the time, the trope is you can't be what you can't see. So, we talked about, some of your mentors. I know I was reading a lot about, your grandma being a major influence in your life, but, do you have mentors that you look to as you were kind of building your platform or building your space in this movement, who kind of did the movement the way you did, or did the work the way you did, in terms of looking at movement work, but also in fine dining spaces? Like, who are some of those mentors for you?
I can't say I have too many mentors in the space doing it, but I have mentors in general. I think people need to have people that they can contact, call, talk to. And I mean, with real life experience, like, it's like older than me. It's like, not to say like you can't. And I think that's another thing culturally where we have it divided too, where it's like, people don't have like I hang out with people that's like 50 something, not like hanging out, like, but I kick it with them, go get coffee, talk to them. And like some of those people, Chef Ben Bynum from the Bynum Brothers, Earl Boyd, he was the founding chair of the West Philadelphia Financial Institute. It's called Vested In now. But Earl Boyd, Taib, he's old.
He's gonna hear this. He listens to the show.
No, but he's really great. He's a great person to talk to. He always comes with a point of view that you may not be looking at.
It's so annoying too. Like, I don't like talking to you sometimes because I'm like, I wasn't even thinking about that now. I have to think about 50 other things just because I talk to you right now.
Yeah. So yeah, like he's one of them. So it's like I keep some like friends around that's older and that are really good at like just giving you like telling you like their trials, their tribulations, things that they went through. Because half the time, you didn't like Mr. Boyd didn't have to be a chef to like understand like some of the things. He's also an entrepreneur, so he understands like economics. He understands a lot of things. So he's a great guy to talk to, and pretty much he was the one that really pretty much put me on this path with the Black Dragon because before I got like Route 23 and 16, 17, he offered me like a Chinese store. He was like, hey, on Lancaster Avenue, there's a lot of these Chinese stores that's closing on Lancaster Avenue and West Philadelphia Financial Institute. I don't know if they bought the lease on them or like purchased them or something like, but they had Chinese stores where they could like give to a business owner or something like that. So I was like, at the time, I was all chefy, like, nah, that's not what I want to do. Not what I want to do. But it was funny because he was also a part of on the board of this company called Entrepreneur Works. So I went through like Entrepreneur Works, like entrepreneurial training, and they would have like a cooking competition for their food entrepreneurs. I won this competition 3 years. So 2 years it was in like the savory, and 1 year was in the pastry. And all the years I did like Black. At the time I was calling it fusion, but now I'm calling it like connection cuisine, because I'm drawing connections between Black American food and Chinese food. So I won the cooking competitions, and I did it with like Black and Chinese like fusion dishes. Like I did a General Tao's chicken, like little chicken waffle. It was like a coconut waffle, and I took like the maple syrup and the hot honey mustard packets and mixed it together. So it was like, I was playing with this idea. It's like 2014, 2015. And I've never been the person that's like, you got to strike when the iron's hot, or like, it's like you missed this opportunity. And honestly, I don't believe in time like works that way,
right?
Like
it's like when it's for you, it's for you, right?
Yeah, like Jay said, he's like, one day you up, one day you down. As long as you stay the same, it comes around. So I think that's how I've been with this project, Black Dragon. Like I've always like worked with things. I got plenty of like moleskin books with recipes written down like years ago. So it's like half those things I won't even like probably even use, but just like looking back on it, was like, damn, yeah, that was, what was I thinking about during that time of like when what I thought this looked like. And now like the whole concept, now the project is going to be more of I want to use it for a financial tool for the Black community. So not just for my like economic freedom, but also being able to the point to build it out to a franchise model. And if you look at Chinese stores now, if you take like a map of Southwest, and then you take a map of Chinese stores in Southwest and put it over top of that map, it looks like franchises. It looks like a bunch of,
Well, they are. That's how they sustain. Like that is their pipeline. That's why and you know what the crazy thing is, that I saw that power when they wanted to put up those glass buildings, or they wanted to tell them they could not longer put those glass buildings. The Cindy Batts bill that came out, it was like what, 2017, 2018?
2017, 2018.
When they took over those chambers, I was just like, this is a real movement right here.
Yeah.
and they killed it, right? So no, that power is real because they built that pipeline out through franchises, and I love to see that you're doing that for our communities, because it's like, it's about time that we kind of make this a circular process, because they put them in our communities because we are spending our money in these Chinese stores.
And honestly, they put them in the community because it was to the point where it was like it was no other competition. So like it wasn't to the point where it's like, we want to put a Chinese store here because we really want to feed people. It was like, they couldn't put Chinese stores anywhere else.
Right.
So it was like, this was the way to be able to get financial freedom for them. That's why I'm starting the project, because when Mr. Boyd told me around 2015, 16, they were closing then, and they're still closing because the children of the offspring of the first and second generation Chinese Americans, they're not dealing with these stores anymore.
Right.
Because now they have jobs in tech, finance, doctors, whatever they do, they have good jobs. There's no need for them to want to like take these stores on anymore. So with the closing of the stores, this is something that's going on all over the country. Even if you look at it like, when I was in New York, I would like go into like a Jamaican restaurant, but it was like inside of an old Chinese store. So like when you go in there, you get a beef patty or something, and they put it in the bulletproof glass and they spin it around.
Right.
But it was just like a closed down Chinese store.
Right.
So this movement has been going on all in America. Even like we have concepts where Black people are going into old Chinese stores and doing Chinese food. Prime example, halal fusion.
Yeah.
They do that. So and when I came up with this idea, it was more of a food. It was more of a food play where it was like the play on food, because I'm a chef and then, like I said, student. So I'm not per se doing the same work as a halal fusion,
Right.
because Chinese store, Black owned Chinese store. I'm doing a Chinese store that's Black owned, but the cuisine is different.
Right.
The cuisine is pretty much collard green egg rolls, oxtail rangoon. It's dishes that culturally relevant to the community. For me, being a chef and chef, pretty much like I want to say like a historian, activist, it wouldn't have fulfilled my need just to come in and do Chinese food, because that's what was done here. But we want to give Chinese food in our community a new look.
Right.
So that's where.
So you just keep jumping around taking my questions, because I was going to ask you, what are you excited about? Hoping we talk about this. So no, that sounds amazing.
Oh, no.
So
I'm gonna tell you what I'm excited about. Tell you what I'm excited about. So I'm finishing up a cookbook proposal.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it's called Platter Food, and platter food is something that's been a point of economic freedom for Black people since like Reconstruction. The second wave of migration up to the north. When you think about Harlem, they would have the rent parties, and when they had rent parties, people paid to come in someone's house, party. They got food, they ate, and that pretty much helped people pay their rent. When you think about in our community, your mom might have to sell platters.
I'm gonna say Isaiah's mom in 2017 and 20, rest in peace, Miss V. She used to sell like the best platters, and that's how we used to get some major money in donations from Isaiah from the church.
So it's also the Black churches. When you think about the Black churches with the Black churches, what that means for the Black churches, like how they raise money, and then when you think about civil rights movement, Georgia Gilmore, how they raised money to sustain carpools so people didn't have to catch buses, the bus boycott. Montgomery bus boycott. Even thinking about my grandma, she sold platters and dinners because she had card games. So she wrote numbers. She had the card games. When she had the card games, they would be there at her house or the place where she had the card games, and they would be there all night. So people they eat food. So platter food is just something that honestly sustains Black people. Our community is a part of our culture. This underground economy that people don't really know or understand. It's different than I want to not gonna say it's different. It's like the ladies in New York selling churros, or the mangoes with the tangine on it. So it's just like it's like that, but literally it's like more like in people's houses.
Right.
Like you go in somebody's house, you get a plate, and then it's like I call it platter food because that's like, let me get a platter. But
right.
It's like, it used to be called a plate.
Yep.
Or down south is like a meat and three. So it's different different things of what people call it. But yeah, that's what I'm finishing that up, my book proposal for Platter Food.
That's amazing. I'm excited. Like I'm going to tell you to give your handles and whatnot so everybody can follow along as everything kind of rolls out. But I always have to ask this one last question, and I'm like kind of mad. These times always go by so quickly. We're actually over time, but like I have to get this last question out because this is what the show is about. So what does it really mean for you to be your full self, to be completely unedited?
Man, like freedom. Just having the freedom to like do what I want. And also I'm also a person that if I don't like something or like the way something's going, I'm out.
Right.
I'm out. I'm never like tied to a ideology of something. And that's also that, like I said, I'm more concerned about the work that I do versus what it looks like I do. So I could care less about what anybody think I'm doing. I just care about what I'm actually doing.
Right.
Yeah, so
I love that. That's amazing. I think most people don't have that freedom just to be able to walk away. And I think that also speaks to the work that you've done, because I think you have to grind to get to that point, right? Because sometimes we can't just walk away because we're not feeling the situation. So that really speaks to, how hard you work, your character, what you've been able to do, and all the spaces that you're in. So I just appreciate you so much for joining the show today. This has been an amazing conversation.
I'm glad we were able to get it.
Yes, we were able to get it done. And I hope folks, really listening to the journey. And I want to just say, please drop your handles or tell us, how people can follow along with you as you have so many amazing ventures coming out as we close out.
Yeah, Instagram, Kurt Cooks, KurtCooks, and Chef Kurt Evans. ChefKurtCooks.com, and you can follow along, subscribe, and keep you up abreast of what I'm doing.
Right, and find out about all the good food. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, no, this has been this leg of the Unabridged journey. Thank you guys so much, and that's this episode. Thank you.
And that has been Unabridged. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast. And also be sure to follow us on Instagram, and also check out our website. That's UNABRDG podcast.com. See you next week.